Hello everyone, this is Reason Pleasantview, and yes, we are still round 1. But this is the last third of it. As you can see, we are already in Sim State University. We are going to have 6 uni episodes this time because we are playing for 3 sim years, not just for 1. This means that hopefully all the Sim State premades will graduate this round. Before we start our sub-rotation with the freshman household like we did the last time, I need to move Gavin Newson into a dormitory. Gavin turned 18 last round and he unintentionally sacrificed his family to get his education, so hopefully he'll be a good student at least. I'm going to move him into Pinot Plaza dorms because Gavin is quite shy and Sim State dormitory is too crowded for him. Okay, Gavin has found his place, now we are ready to play Ty and Jared. Ty and Jared are feeling a bit lonely without their best friend Sam, who moved out to another dormitory to be with her boyfriend. Is it her love story that is giving guys all these romantic thoughts? Soon after unpausing the game, I saw Jared return from his final exam with a B grade. I changed this dormie's outfit because he used to look like Jimmy Phoenix. As we'd given Ty Bubbler's hairstyle to Gilbert Jacquet, I had to change Ty's hairstyle and he was really happy about it. Jared was still obsessed with gaming, so I changed his one true hobby to games. Ty went to his class and we were left with Jared, who kept his wants about getting engaged to Heather and playing with Allegra. As I still believe that he wasn't serious or active enough to propose, I decided to follow his playful nature and made him invite Allegra over. Surprisingly, she turned out to be equally interested in Jared as she initiated the play interaction herself. And straight after that, Jared rolled once to tell her a joke and appreciate her. Well, what can I say? Apparently opposites attract. After a couple of friendly interactions, we sent Allegra home, and I figured that if Jared was attracted to her, he should probably change his style. We also remember from the last round that he was getting bullied because of his looks, or maybe because of the cultural appropriation he was involved in, so the changes were definitely necessary. Of course, Jared wasn't a big fan of his new style, but his chances to impress Allegra got higher. Jared also needed a cooking skill point for his studies, so I made him walk to the campus gym to work in the cafeteria. Eric Swain was on that lot too, but as I saw later, he didn't really exercise, he only came there to bully some Sims. Of course, Jared burned his very first spaghetti, and to make it even more humiliating, it was going to be tasted by the local chef, Joshua Rubin from the fraternity. Strangely enough, Joshua seemed to enjoy the spaghetti. He was probably happy that he didn't have to cook it himself for a change. Overall, Jared earned about 100 simoleons, but unfortunately he didn't manage to get his cooking skill point. Meanwhile, at the dormitory, Ty Bubbler decided to throw a party. He invited his crush Ashley Pitts and his friend Castor Nova. Ty gossiped with Castor about a guy who was copying Kevin Bear's style, and they became best friends. Ty also danced with Ashley, who turned out to be such a great dancer that Ty finally brought himself to flirting with him, which resulted in them falling in love with each other. As Ty was hanging out with Castor downstairs, they were talking about the fraternity, but as soon as Castor saw one dormie pass by, he stopped the conversation and proceeded into that dormie's bedroom. I don't know about you guys, but I've always felt that Castor is one of those guys who fake their indifference towards romantic relationships only to play with girls' hearts. So Castor pretends to be cool and mysterious, but in reality he really enjoys being in the spotlight and he is getting some benefits from it. Brittany Upsnot came to the party uninvited, either to spy on Castor or to talk to her friend Jared, whose sudden change of style had fueled all kinds of rumors on campus. At the end of the party, Ty rolled a wand to woohoo, but Ashley was about to leave, so I decided not to try it. And the party was considered a snoozer. Looks like that dormy girl wasn't much fun for Custer. Later I made Jared cook his dinner and he got the necessary skill point. Ty had a wand to gain a skill point, so I made him play chess because he's a lazy sim. Straight after fulfilling that wand, he rolled more about having another party and buying a bunch of stuff to make the parties more successful. He clearly got really upset about this one. Late at night, Jared was studying couples counseling. Maybe he hoped it would help him to figure out who he liked more, Heather or Allegra. And only at 3 a.m. Custer went out from the dormie's bedroom because he got hungry. Well, at least he wasn't thirsty anymore. In the morning, Brittany showed up on our lot again. She clearly had some informants at the dormitory who told her that Custer was still there. Speaking of Custer, as soon as he finished doing his homework in Ty's bedroom, the dormy girl went into the room. Custer quickly pretended he didn't know her. I think he'd heard Jared's footsteps. I'm getting so intrigued by this. Ty had a want to influence someone to do his homework, so of course he asked Custer, who was an absolute pro at philosophy. But Custer looked like he was having a hard time doing it. I think he hadn't had any sleep that night. Jared was studying couples counseling again, but he also rolled a wand to get a logic skill point, which he didn't even need for his studies. Perhaps he figured that it would make him more attractive in Allegra's eyes. So I made both Jared and Ty play chess in the evening. Soon they were approached by 2 dormy guys. By the way, one of them used to bully Jared during his freshman year. Let's hope they wanted to give Jared a compliment, otherwise it looked like a dangerous situation to me. I think Jared felt the danger too, that's why he had an angry grimace on his face till the end of the day. Next morning, both Ty and Jared had the wands to play chess, and luckily this time no one was threatening them. Ty also rolled a wand to get a skill point, so I made him stop playing chess and start painting instead, because he needed creativity to get a B grade. Apparently Jared couldn't stop thinking about his bullies, so he went to his class in his PJs. Ty gained his creativity skill point, which made him more creative than Jared, who was actually studying art. The bills at Sim State Dormitory got quite small all of a sudden, by the way. Did they believe the guys were broke because Jared was walking around half naked? The guys were missing their best friend Sam Thomas, and I made Ty invite her over. Turned out Sam was insecure about her looks. She didn't believe Ty when he gave her a compliment. Her chat with Ty didn't go well either. Looks like she'd been facing an identity crisis ever since she'd moved in with her boyfriend Jimmy. I decided to walk the old freshman trio to a community lot to hang out with each other. Tiffany Sampson showed up there too and finally approved of Jared's looks. Sam, Ty and Jared played billiards together, tossed football, and then Jared gossiped with Sam about Allegra. Jared finally realized that if he's thinking and talking about this girl all day long, that probably means something, so he asked Allegra out on a date. And we discovered that she wanted to fall in love with him. I believe she got sick of dreaming about Custer and decided to move on. It's still hard to tell why she picked Jared out of everyone else. He must be really famous for his graffiti. Heather Huffington appeared on the lot, but she wasn't jealous at all. She'd got everything she wanted from Jared. Jared decided to be creative and serenaded Allegra in the middle of the street. Custer Nova happened to witness one of his fangirls being taken away from him. And I don't think Allegra cared about it. She fell in love with Jared immediately. Unfortunately, Jared had to go to his final exam, so the date was over sooner than I expected. But it still was a dream date. This time Jared only got a C. I believe he'd got distracted by dating. But that date with Allegra influenced him in the best way possible. He rolled a wand about getting a skill point and started building his painting skills, which he desperately needed. By the way, Ty got a B grade for his third semester. He returned from his exam right at the moment where Jared was leaving the lot, so I won't show you the scene. Anyway, Jared was rolling wants about creativity one after another, so I let him paint until he'd got super exhausted. And in the morning Ty got a want about playing chess again, which was great as he needed more logic skill points. And I made him cook his breakfast, because he needed a cooking skill point too. Now let's play the students that live in Pine Nut Plaza dorms. I have changed their family bio as well, but of course it doesn't include Gavin. Eric is losing enthusiasm about living with his countryman Jimmy. First all those parties, and now Jimmy's girlfriend has moved into their dormitory. How can anyone call it a girl at all? The first day started with Sam claiming a room next to Jimmy's. Eric finally stopped thinking about Heather and concentrated on mastering his creativity skill. Meanwhile, Jimmy got a charisma skill point. Gavin claimed the room upstairs, and Sam decided to practice painting on her own. It was a great move as she needed creativity. Looks like Gavin turned out to be gay. He didn't have any chemistry with Sam or female dormies, but had one bold with Jimmy. Gavin's updated personal bio reads, Gavin is convinced that getting good education is absolutely necessary if he wants to provide for his younger siblings with ease. Perhaps leaving 2 children and 2 toddlers on Ginger's shoulders was risky, but he hopes they'll be okay. As you understand, Gavin knew nothing about what had happened in his family, so I made him call his sister Ginger to check up on his siblings. The moment he heard the news, he began to blame everything on Ginger and even told her he would kick her ass. As for Jimmy's bio, it almost says the same, but I added the following line at the end, suggesting that he craves social approval too much and can easily be influenced to do something he doesn't want to. That day he became best friends with Jared's star child. Hopefully Jared won't tell him to sneak food from the cafeteria for him. Later Jimmy was lounging on the sofa like he usually does, and his high interest in school didn't seem to motivate him at all. Eric was daydreaming about a perfect woman, and it wasn't surprising as his updated personal bio claimed that he hoped to find his future wife at university and that his last girlfriend was a disaster. Gavin wanted to earn some money, but unfortunately when he arrived at the campus gym, it was time for him to go to class. But later his shift at the cafeteria turned out to be a lot easier than Jared's star child's. He was just standing there doing nothing and getting paid for it. Meanwhile at the dormitory, Ty Bubbler came to visit his best friend Sam, and she admired his new hairstyle straight away. As Sam was chatting on the phone with Tiffany Sampson, we found out that she hated Eric Swain, who'd insulted her around zero. But Eric hated her back even more. She clearly didn't look like the perfect woman to him. Apparently Eric also didn't like Ty's hairstyle, that's why he was waiting for a chance to annoy him. But Ty chose wisely to ignore the bully. As I sent Gavin to declare economics as his major, Eric was trying to bully Sam yet again. But this time Eric crossed all the borders as he switched to physical attacks. He poked Sam in her shoulder, making her burst into tears. And in the evening Sam decided to raise her mood by having a woohoo with Jimmy. Heather Huffington was passing by Pine Nut Plaza dorms, and of course Eric couldn't miss this opportunity to accuse her of spying on him, which resulted in Heather losing her love for Eric. As Gavin was jumping rope in his nightgown, he rolled a 1 to get a logic skill point and a 1 to call his sister Georgia. I believe he wanted to know what had happened to his siblings after they'd been taken away. Don't worry, Gavin. At least Garrett and Georgia will most likely have wonderful lives being adopted by Cassandra Goss herself. Ty wanted to chat with Sam, but she was already asleep, so he just stayed in her bedroom. Gavin got his logic skill point and rolled a 1 to purchase a community lot. He probably wanted to buy the entire orphanage to save his siblings. Eric started his next morning by playing computer games while Sam was caressing Jimmy in his bedroom. She is really in love with him. When I looked at Eric's relationship panel, I thought that dating Brittany can be a nice option for him. They'd been friends for quite some time and seemed to have pretty similar ideas about life. Sam and Jimmy were dancing together downstairs when the phone rang and Jimmy went to answer. Guess who called? The guy who had tried to set the time for a fight with Eric round zero. Luckily for Eric, he was too busy working on his charisma skill and later went to class instead of picking up the phone. Sam was trying to concentrate on her assignment, but this dormie was standing right behind her back, getting on her nerves. Poor Sam, no one respects her at her new dormitory. We got the notification claiming that Jimmy was considered a good sim. Well, he is too good. Even the cafeteria lady was thinking about him non-stop. I had to make Gavin prepare his own lunch because he refused to roll any ones about skill points. I also made him clean the toilet, but he didn't get a cleaning skill point either. But then he decided to clean the shower on his own and got it pretty quickly. Eric invited Brittany over, and as he was waiting for her in the hall, Sam chose to leave the computer and get out of his sight. I think Eric got what he wanted. Sam is afraid of him now. The first thing Brittany did upon seeing Eric was to diss Ty Bubbler's party. Eric didn't like Ty either, so he admired Brittany's great sense of humor. Then he held hands with her and they fell in love with each other. However, the first thing Eric attempted to do after that was to poke Sam again. But Sam decided to show Eric that she was Brittany's friend, that's why he shouldn't touch her. Great idea, Sam. Maybe Eric will at least respect his girlfriend's friends. Gavin had the same hairstyle as Steven Tinker, so I changed it. Then I sent him to chat with Eric because Eric wanted to be friends with him, and they got along very well. Sam was following her boyfriend Jimmy everywhere, but it looked like he wasn't as invested in their relationship as she was. All he cared about was lounging on the sofa, and as you already know, this annoys Eric a lot, so he lectured Jimmy yet again. He also recommended Jimmy to get out from their dormitory with his girlfriend Sam because Eric couldn't stand her. And of course Jimmy was too meek to defend himself. And when later Eric attacked Sam again and she decided to finally talk about it with her boyfriend and get some support from him, Jimmy was napping peacefully on the sofa. Poor Sam, her boyfriend is way too friendly. This can also be proved by the fact that Jimmy always keeps his room unlocked and lets random dormies sit in his bed while he is sleeping in it. This guy here already knows too much. Next morning we learned that Eric had some serious intentions considering Brittany. He wanted to get engaged to her. Gavin suddenly rolled a wand to make Dean's List, so I sent him to practice his speech. Meanwhile, Jimmy was painting because he wanted to get a skill point, and we found out that his one true hobby was arts and crafts. And of course, Sam tried to grab his attention again. Meanwhile, Eric's stalker tried to reach him again, but Eric was at class. I made Jimmy stop painting, but he resumed it on his own. That's how he got his second creativity skill point, maximizing his meter. I agreed with Jimmy's one true hobby, but I had to change it for Eric because his preset sports one true hobby made no sense for him. He clearly dreamed about becoming an artist. And I also changed Sam's one true hobby from tinkering to sports. Eric wanted to gain a skill point, so I made him study cooking. Who knows, maybe he's ready to do anything to succeed in his studies. Gavin became friends with Eric while playing darts. They have quite similar personalities, by the way. But just in a couple of hours we found out that Eric didn't consider Gavin to be his friend. Well, Eric is really picky. Heather was passing by again and Eric literally shooed her. Jimmy kept his word about having a party, so I made him throw one and he invited Ashley and Jared. As Jimmy was chatting with Jared, Ashley was entertaining himself with a can of beer. Meanwhile, Eric finished his term paper and decided to nap before his final exam. But his plan turned out to be unrealizable because of the loud music coming from the hall where Jimmy and Ashley were dancing together. After some time and some more beer, they secluded themselves in Jimmy's bedroom. Ashley goosed Jimmy and they fell in love with each other. The guy who'd been dancing with Jimmy and Ashley told Sam that her boyfriend and his guest might be up to something. So she went into Jimmy's bedroom to check that up and caught the two drunken guys in the act. And after all the shock, she had to run to her final exam. Apparently, Jimmy couldn't think straight at all that night. He was running after Ashley to apologize for his cheating after the party had been over. "Oh, Jimmy, you should stop drinking." Eric returned from his final exam with an A+, but he couldn't let Jimmy sleep after what he had done. He lectured him and insulted him, mincing no words. I don't think Jimmy understood anything, though. Gavin got an A+ for his final exam and Sam only a C, but I think she did a great job after what she'd been through that night. She went straight to bed. She didn't want to even see Jimmy's face anymore. As everyone was sleeping, I was thinking about moving Sam and Eric out of this dormitory because Sam wouldn't be able to live with Jimmy after his cheating and Eric was already sick of Jimmy's parties. As for Jimmy himself, he was about to have his final exam and a dormie decided to wake him up. Jimmy wasn't quite sober yet, but I think that he's a sim who performs even better when he is stressed. He remembered to get dressed and ran to his exam. And it's time to play the three-var sorority. Their family bio didn't change. Brittany Upsnot started her day by calling Martin Rubin because she still hoped to ruin Heather's reputation in his eyes. As for Tiffany, she occupied Brittany's computer and Heather was writing in her diary about books. Perhaps she decided to become a famous writer instead of a movie star. Anyway, as soon as I cancelled that action, she proceeded to the chess table. This girl clearly isn't as dumb as she seems. I sent Brittany to the clothing store as she needed a new outerwear and I changed this dormie's outfit because he used to look like Kevin Bear. And when Brittany returned, we found out that the sorority sisters didn't even have a wardrobe. I bought them a tiny dresser and then I saw that Brittany wanted to get engaged to Eric. As Eric prefers blondes, I believe Brittany will have to ask him to go steady herself. Of course, he's not as handsome as Casternova, but he's one of the best students on campus, so I see why Brittany wanted to get him. The Greek house got rank 5 because Tiffany became friends with Ty while chatting with him on the phone. Heather called the red-headed Orlando and told him she was super hot. Well, Heather, he'd obviously already known that. That's why he'd been trying so hard to steal you from Eric. Later, Heather asked Orlando out on a date and told him that she'd seen Allegra Gorey going out with Jared Starchild. The entire university will know about it soon. But of course, Heather wasn't there just to spread some rumors. After a making out session, she and Orlando proceeded to the sofa by the window to get their public woohoo. By the way, there was a professor standing right outside the shop. Let's hope she wasn't Heather's professor. Anyway, the professor decided to leave that dirty place right after she'd seen Heather and Orlando. But poor teenager at the cash register had to watch everything from the front row. Orlando fell in love with Heather and ran after her when she decided to leave. I think I feel sorry for him. Surprisingly, the bookworm type Tiffany rolled a one-to muscle dance alongside her regular ones about studies, and I decided that she needed some time out, because she had 50 hours before her final exam when Brittany and Heather only had 32 and 24 hours accordingly. But before Tiffany had gone anywhere, the trainer yelled at Heather and made her work out. Well, Heather, you shouldn't moan. Body skill is very useful for wannabe superstars. The first thing Tiffany did in the campus lounge was playing a musical instrument, of course. Jane Stack was there too, studying as usual. I wanted Tiffany to spend as much time on a community lot as possible, so I made her work out right in the campus lounge. I also figured that with her high interest in health and wants about gaining body skill points, she can easily have fitness as her one true hobby. Heather had the same hairstyle as Kaylin Langerak, Kaylin Geek, so I gave her a longer version of it. Let's say she got some hair extensions. Now Heather looked like a total girl boss, lounging in their fancy living room and having the cow mascot play the piano for her. I ended that day by changing everyone's one true hobby. Tiffany got fitness, Heather got film and literature, and Brittany got music and dance. In the morning, Brittany lectured Tiffany for using her computer. The computer is in Brittany's bedroom, so I believe she is convinced that it is hers. I don't know what happened to Heather, but as you'll see later, she suddenly got really friendly with Tiffany. She also shared Tiffany's fate, got lectured by Brittany for using her computer. In the afternoon, Tiffany greeted Ty Bubbler, who was passing by, and they became best friends. And guess what happened to Ty after Tiffany had gone to her class? He got a stray fist as well. Or a stray glass of water, I'd say. I think I'll log Brittany's bedroom for the next episode. At the dining table, Heather gave Tiffany a compliment, but didn't approve of Tiffany's self-confidence, claiming that she wasn't charismatic enough. As usual, Heather got a B grade for her final exam and continued to butter Tiffany up. The girls were also talking about dates. I think Heather was sharing her advice on how to attract a man, and her plan was to spoil Tiffany to make herself feel better about her own reputation. If you are not the only girl who's sleeping around, you will not seem as bad anymore. Influenced by Heather's advice, Tiffany went to the clothing store, where she bought a more revealing top. And of course she got complimented for it by Heather. Brittany's final exam was drawing nearer, but unfortunately this time she couldn't even hope to get an A. All her time had been consumed by arguing with other Sims, and she forgot to get her cleaning skill point. But I wasn't upset about it. I believe only Martin, Castor and Allegra can be top students. Maybe Eric as well. Heather wanted to gain a skill point, so I made her work on her charisma. And unsurprisingly, her speech was about fashion. As for Brittany, she only got a C+ this time. No wonder she rolled a 1 to get a skill point first thing in the morning. And this is how Tiffany gets her 10,000 steps a day. She walks from one sink to another with a dirty plate in her hands. Brittany got her charisma skill point and went to class, while Heather decided to read something romantic. When Brittany returned from her class, she decided to invite Eric over to annoy her rival Heather, who happened to be Eric's ex-girlfriend. After a passionate greeting, Eric initiated the make-out interaction himself. But when he saw Heather, we found out that he still preferred her to Brittany. Brittany decided to cheat her way to Eric's heart using the leftovers of Heather's pancakes. Oh, Eric, if you only knew. But he knew nothing, so after a couple of romantic interactions, he agreed to go steady with the queen bee. And the moment Eric was out of the sorority house, Brittany yelled at Heather for using her bathtub. I almost forgot to mention that Tiffany had got an A+ for her exam. And in the evening, Heather tried to convert her to her glam and sexy ways again. Next morning, Sam Thomas moved into the sorority house, and we saw Brittany admire the cow mascot as he was trying to knock Heather's teeth out. Brittany let Sam stay in the tiniest bedroom and attempted to raise her mood by gossiping about Ty's lousy party. Okay, we are ready to play the fraternity. Custer needed a body skill point, so I made him work out in front of the TV set. Meanwhile, Joshua was complaining about his regular cooking duty to his best friend Ashley. We also found out that Custer disliked the llama mascot for some reason, most likely because the mascot couldn't become his fangirl. Kevin tried to catch up with Tiffany, who was passing by, but she didn't even look at him. Ashley gained a charisma skill point, and I sent him to buy new clothes. Who knows, maybe his recently grown popularity had boosted his self-esteem. That's why he decided to look his best. Additionally, his original outfit was too much like Don Lothario's, and he had the same hairstyle as Jimmy. Anyway, this is what he transformed into. Kaylin Geek and Gilbert Jacquet dyed their hair black. Why can't Ashley dye his hair blonde? Custer had a bunch of wants about his friend Jane Stack, so he invited her over. While he was hanging out with Jane on the sidewalk, we learned that his fangirls come in all ages. After his makeover, Ashley was in a perfect mood, so he asked Ty Bubbler out on a date. During the date, Ashley gossiped about Jimmy's cheating on Sam, and of course he missed out the fact that it was him who Jimmy had cheated with. Overall, the date was pretty short and uneventful because Ashley had to go to his class. Meanwhile, at the dormitory, Kevin was dreaming about falling in love with the cheerleader. And the cheerleader came running into the fraternity house. Unsurprisingly, she ran straight to Custer, who was asleep in his bedroom. "Hey girl, don't you think you're a bit clingy?" In the evening, Ashley decided to finish his date with Ty, so he invited him over. And it didn't take Ashley long to talk Ty into a woohoo in the frat brothers' hot tub. By the way, Custer Nova was in the backyard during the action, so let's hope he was using the telescope to look at the stars only. And Kevin wasn't wasting his time either. He cornered the cheerleader in Ashley and Joshua's bedroom and was boasting about his creativity skill. She still wasn't impressed, telling him that she preferred guys who exercised regularly. And after the chat was over, she ran to Custer again. Next morning, when Kevin got distracted by Joshua, the cheerleader went into Custer's bedroom in her bikini, pretending that she needed his help to do her assignment. But Custer couldn't stab Kevin in the back like that and went out of the room. Ashley all of a sudden began to talk to Kevin about dating and relationships. Kevin told Ashley that he would have loved to start a relationship, but the local girls ignored him completely. After the cheerleader, who'd been standing behind Kevin's back during that talk, had heard him say that, she attempted to talk to Kevin one more time, but saw one of his roles, changed her mind, and ran immediately to Custer Nova. Later, Custer went to get mail, which turned out to be a love letter from a dormie he'd had fun with during Ty's party. Joshua returned from his class and decided to play the piano on his own, and quickly got to the necessary creativity skill point. Ever since Joshua's best friend Ashley had become successful in his personal life, Joshua was feeling quite lonely, so he chose to call his brother Martin. Joshua attempted to complain about lack of romance in his life, but nerdy and arrogant Martin was barely listening and quickly hung up on his brother. In the afternoon, Ashley was studying physiology because I thought it was a great idea for a romance aspiration sim. And Custer influenced Joshua to clean the entire house again. Apparently, Custer likes torturing other sims. With Joshua being in another room, Custer decided to write in his diary, but got scared that Kevin or Ashley would see that he was writing about girls, who he was secretly not indifferent to at all. That made me remember that Custer needed to call his fangirls to remind them of his existence. By the way, he had the weakest relationships with Allegra and Brittany, so no wonder these two fell for other guys so quickly. When Custer was talking to Allegra, he mentioned her new friend, and also hinted at Allegra's possible replacement in his fan club with another girl. Judging by his reaction, Allegra didn't buy into it. In the evening, I was checking everyone's one true hobby again. Custer was arts and crafts, but I made him science. Joshua and Ashley were sports, which was making perfect sense, and Kevin got sports instead of arts and crafts too. Kevin got a logic skill point and immediately rolled a 1 to get another one. He needed that skill point, but unfortunately it was already pretty late and he wasn't in the greatest mood. Ashley returned from his final exam with an A+. Looks like his success in bed made him flourish in all areas of his life. And he also got rewarded by Ty Bubbler, who brought him a garden gnome as a thank you for their last date. As usual, Custer had his final exam early in the morning, so he was almost late again. Of course, he returned with an A+, and then it was time for Kevin and Joshua to take their exams. While they were away, Ashley was studying physiology and Custer decided to write his term paper. After Kevin and Joshua returned with their B grades, they proceeded to toss football, and I was thinking about the neat-looking coats, which didn't match their personalities at all. Ashley asked Ty out on a date again, but soon rolled a 1 to ask him back to his place. So unlike Heather and Jimmy, who are ready to woohoo anytime and anywhere, Ashley seems to care for his reputation. By the way, have you noticed Sam pass by without starting a fight with Ashley? I believe she didn't recognize him after his makeover. It was fall. No one knew exactly what to wear in that weather. Kevin burned his grilled cheese sandwiches, so Joshua decided to give him a master class. Later, Joshua rolled a 1 that looked like earning some money, but when I sent him to the campus gym to do so, it turned out that he wanted to earn 3,000 simoleons, which was impossible to do in one day of working in the cafeteria, so he basically just wasted his time there. Meanwhile, at the dormitory, Ashley made it a dream date with Ty, undoubtedly in hopes of getting more gnomes from him. And Kevin again was trying to chat about something serious with the cheerleader, but she of course was avoiding such topics. She prefers cheering on the toilet to talking about dates to Kevin. In the evening we learned that Ashley feared getting engaged to Jimmy. Well, it's not surprising, Jimmy seems to have problems with alcohol. As for Ashley himself, he finally learned physiology that evening, and now he could easily fulfill his want to woohoo with 3 different sims. After midnight, the cheerleader finally noticed Kevin, who was stargazing to get his second logic skill point. She was trying to say goodbye to him, but I cancelled his action too late and he missed his opportunity to hug her goodbye. And in the morning, Eric Swain moved into the fraternity house following his friend Kevin's recommendation. He brought his easel with him, of course. What I loved most about Eric's new room was its windows that were facing Brittany's window. I mean, isn't it romantic? But for now, I just made him study mechanical. And now we are ready to play the Bright household. Their family bio didn't change, but I changed their personal bios. The first thing I saw in the Bright household was Jane Stacks writing her term paper. "Hey Jane, this computer is broken!" To be honest, I've made Jared pursue Allegra to make the Bright household more interesting to play. But I don't think she's going to propose him or ask him to go steady anytime soon. She's very serious, she's going to take her time to take a closer look at Jared. She's heard that he sometimes doesn't bother to dress properly when he goes to his class, and that his last grade was only a C. He'll have to prove his worth to her. Now let's read Jane's updated bio. Everyone on campus is shipping Jane with the irresistible Custer, but ironically, she's got a crush on one of his fangirls. Will Jane leave her feelings behind after she graduates? So yes, Jane is going to graduate the next episode. I was about to present you Martin's updated bio when the trainer appeared on the lot. He began to yell at Jane to make her work out while she was eating peacefully. And she didn't even need any body skill points. As soon as the trainer went away, the streaker appeared in the kitchen and started to tease Allegra. This is insulting. The streaker also ran into the living room. Look at Martin's face. It says, ew. Anyway, Martin and Jane had to leave the house because of their studies. Allegra had the same hairstyle as Dina Goth, which was unacceptable for me, so I changed it to something different and Allegra liked it. And here is Martin's new bio. Martin's habit of making friends with girls has blown up in his face. He finds his roommate Jane exceptionally attractive, but she seems to be completely oblivious to it. He's trying his best to save his friendship with Allegra, but his crush on Heather is putting everything at great risk. Maybe he should have spent more time with his dumb brother. Meanwhile, Castronova came to discuss Allegra's place in his fan club, but she was walking to her class. After class, Jane chose to read a section about technology in the newspaper, and I remembered to change Martin's one true hobby. Of course, I chose science. He seems to be really into aliens. I also changed Allegra's one true hobby from fitness to arts and crafts because she paints all the time. And after she returned from her class, I sent her to the clothing store to change her jeans that didn't go well with her top. But not everyone considered that change to be positive. Allegra's looks were dissed by this professor. Martin couldn't control his attraction to Jane, and she finally noticed that. So she decided not to torture him anymore and came out as a lesbian. Maybe Martin will change his view of gay sims after his best friend turned out to be one of them. After that important event in Jane's life, the trainer came in again to make her exercise. He clearly wasn't satisfied with her morning progress. Allegra is clearly hiding something from us. She is way too fascinated by death, judging by her wants. In the evening, Allegra went to Stargaze and she needed a logic skill point, and of course Martin used that time to call his crush Heather Huffington. After Allegra got her skill point, she influenced Martin to clean the entire house. Perhaps she'd heard him talk to Heather anyway. But Martin seemed to be happy to know that he was helpful. His fun wasn't going down at all. By 11 p.m., everyone had gone to bed, but Allegra, as a true witch, was still doing her assignment. As usual, Martin started his day by playing computer games. As for the girls, they decided to start a dancing competition. They're equally bad, I think. Other than that, it was a very typical morning at the Bright household. Everyone was talking about studies at the table. Jane was going crazy over Allegra. The latter needed a body skill point, but she couldn't get it at home because of the lack of space, so I made her go to the gym. And she also rolled a want about learning physiology that was necessary for her lifetime want. By the way, Allegra got that skill point really quickly even without the knowledge of physiology. That's because she's very active. Martin and Jane went to class and Allegra began to study physiology. With the help of the llama mascot? Eric Swain was passing by our lot and he waved at Martin, trying hard to seem friendly. I should control my anger. I should control my emotions. I shouldn't poke anyone. Allegra had to forget about physiology and ran to her final exam, but Ty, who was studying philosophy with her, wasn't even going to hurry up. Jane got hungry and I tried to make her cook something, but their fridge was empty, so I had to send her to do some grocery shopping. And Martin, who wanted to make Dean's List, went upstairs to work on his charisma. I should have made Martin cook because Jane burned her mac and cheese even after she'd got her first cooking skill point. Allegra got an A+ for her exam, but she had to celebrate it by eating Jane's cooking anyway. And Jane herself rolled a want-to muscle dance, which I take as a sign of getting bored of staying inside. So Jane went to the campus lounge where she greeted this girl, who she hadn't been getting along with. She also stared at Jimmy in suspicion. I guess everyone on campus now knows his story thanks to Ashley's gossip. Jane decided to greet him because she'd wanted to talk to another queer sim for years, and surprisingly their starting relationship scored very high. But later Jane returned to the red-headed girl and attempted to talk to her while she was doing her assignment. The girl turned her head away from Jane, but she insisted and talked the girl into playing catch with her. Back at their place, Allegra finally learned physiology, and Martin, of course, made Dean's List one more time. Next morning, Jane woke up early to go to her final exam, but she wasn't thinking about the exam before it. She was thinking about Allegra. Apparently, it raised her mood, and she made Dean's List too. Allegra was practicing her speech, Martin was working on his term paper, and they both were waiting for Jane's mood to improve before she could fix their broken bathtub. Soon Martin joined Jane in front of the TV set, but she hated it when he proceeded to talk about famous astronauts and aliens. She preferred to talk about real Sims. Eventually, Jane repaired the bathtub, but she had to go to her class instead of taking care of her own needs. She is so selfless. The streaker visited the Bright household again and waved at Allegra creepily. Speaking of her, she asked Jared out on a date to know him better. He began to talk about kisses, but Allegra told him he should think more about getting his degree, and he agreed to get her approval. Then she suggested buying a coffee for him. And after the coffee, they started a shaky pillow fight right on the central quad. Don't even ask me where they got their pillows from. Martin went to a community lot too. I didn't want to let him use Allegra's easel to raise his creativity, so he played the piano in the campus lounge. I also noticed that dormies here and there were praising Jared's looks. As for Martin, he was being ridiculed for his poor piano skills by this girl. No wonder he snapped at her as soon as he got his skill point. After Allegra and Martin had returned, he continued writing his term paper, and Allegra got teased by the streaker yet again. I think her sudden relationship with Jared made everyone on campus believe she was a hot girl. Jared called Allegra after she'd returned from her class. It was Jane who picked up the phone, so hopefully she finally understood that Allegra could never be hers. Jane was stargazing and got some money for having discovered an unknown star. The moment Allegra learned about it, she rolled a wand to stargaze too. Honestly, we could make her secondary fortune if it wasn't for the bleeding heart romantic in her bio. Allegra's motives were too good to believe almost all the time, and I started questioning again if she wasn't a witch. Next day, Jane kept her wand about being friends with Jimmy, and again we witnessed one of those mornings. Allegra was dancing, Martin was playing computer games, and everyone took their places at the dining table. So this is it for episode 18 part 1. Again, it took me ages, it took me longer than I expected. I did try to make it shorter and to make it cost me less effort by installing the shortened semester mod, but it didn't work properly here. It only worked for Jared, who was at his final exam, and for Gavin, who was new to this place. But even after I tried to do something in SimPE, I still couldn't make the semesters shorter for everyone else. Well, I made it shorter, but the local Sims couldn't pass their exams even with all the necessary skills. So, I don't know what happened. We'll have to wait for the end of this round, and please do not get discouraged. I believe this round is going to be the longest of all. Well, probably there are going to be rotations with more episodes, but the delay is going to be the longest for this one, because we have a lot of Sims. Later we are going to have less sims here at Sim State University, and it will be a lot easier for me to control their examinations and to install the shortened semester mod at the right moment, so to speak. Now thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you in episode 18 part 2.